Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here at the Toronto Film Festival, and it's time for a review of Sing Sing. This tells a true story of a prison theater troupe at the Sing Sing prison. It stars Colman Domingo, whose character is one of the founding members of the troupe, and the rest of the troupe is actually played by actors who were once in the real-life group. This casting decision ended up being really brilliant because it brought a lot of authenticity to these performances, where normally you might just get well-trained actors doing like caricatures of prisoners, and that could feel kind of wrong or weird. Or you could just get Orange is the New Black, and that would probably just feel not the same. It's not that it would ruin the movie, it just wouldn't be the movie that it is. And there's also just this added layer of poignancy, the fact that you know that these are actually people who did this program, and the movie is about the catharsis and the power of performance itself. Also, I don't know if this is true or not, but a lot of the dialogue did seem improvised. For example, you'll see them sharing stories in a circle as part of their acting exercise, and I do wonder if the actors were contributing to what those stories were. The movie's directed by Greg Quendar, and I think he served the story really well, and I think he did that by making the movie feel like this collaborative process with the actors and with this entire group. Like you're saying, it feels like there might be improv, but the camera just follows the characters very closely. The camera is mostly handheld, but the camera work is really nice. It's not just haphazard handheld, and it was evidently shot on film. So instead of this looking, as you might imagine, like a gray or blue, boring, stale prison, this movie is surprisingly almost like sun-soaked, I would say, under the lights that come through the windows or the theater lights. And the setting of the theater feels very separate from what you would expect a prison to look like. It feels very open, very liberating, and I think that is also a very deliberate choice. This acting troupe inside of the prison is designed by prisoners to help themselves and others cope with their hardships and cope with their own psychology. And in real life, these programs have had startling impacts on the inmates. There was a statistic the director gave during the Q&A. Incarcerated people reoffend and then go back to prison at an astounding rate of about 2 in 3. But prisoners who go through this theater program, their reincarceration rate goes way down to 3%. And I need not say any more about what the implications of that are. This is truly a celebration of human beings sharing their vulnerability. It's also a really valuable portrayal of men opening up with other men. And it's a film that is very easy to fall in love with and very likable. I would have liked this movie in the end credits to go a little more call to action. Like I wanted them to show that statistic in the end. I think it's actually really important. Colman Domingo is incredible in this movie. He has Rustin this year. I didn't think that I would see Colman Domingo top that performance, but like this is arguable. And he just shows that he's such a vulnerable, giving actor. A lot of the movie centers around the friendship between Colman Domingo's character and one played by Clarence Divine Eye Macklin. And this actor was great. Watching his character transform and become more vulnerable throughout the film was one of the great joys of watching this movie. Paul Raci is also in this, and while he is not quite as big as I expected him to be, he plays the organizer and writer of the play that everybody else is performing. And he's great in it, as you would expect. I also thought he brought a lot to that role. Like, they could cut to him a couple times for reaction shots, and he's just bringing so much. Very reliable. Put Paul Raci in more movies. Honestly, I would have not minded if he got one more scene in this movie or something that dug a little deeper into him. The film overall is very moving. In intermittent moments throughout, I was brought to tears by some of the monologues that the characters have. The audience absolutely loved it when they brought the ensemble out after the film. I have never seen so much applause at TIFF. I do have a gripe with the film, and that is maybe something that I was wishing was there and is just sort of absent. Sort of surprisingly absent. I feel like the harsh reality of prison was sort of missing because they focus so heavily on the joys of the theater troupe. And of course it's referred to, it is the backdrop that sets the scene for us to understand what this actually means to these people. And this film is not political either. You were saying like maybe there could have been a call to action. I mean, if anything, this film would probably say donate to a program like this, make sure these programs exist. But this is not a film that you should expect to like tackle the biggest problem, which is the fact that people are in prisons in the first place, which is a problem beyond like they are criminals. And I won't go much deeper into it than that, but prison is like just an awful concept for even people who do things that people would consider bad. I think it is just a terrible place to be, and it's dehumanizing. The film does not really get to that place. I don't think it makes the audience feel the harsh realities of prison. If anything, it could possibly allow the mind to escape from that and feel a little bit too cozy. I was a little bit taken aback at how cozy I felt during the movie, and I don't know if that was appropriate or not. I also did think that the movie was so interested in being likable and warm that sometimes it did miss opportunities to do that, but
Yeah.
I don't think that it didn't touch on it. It's absolutely part of the context, but it's just suggested at. There's no claustrophobia even here. Like the idea that haunts me about prisons is how confined they are. But the reason I really wanted it to go there, even if it thinks it's not its place to, is you're taking an audience inside of a prison. We don't see that in films very often, and rarely ever do we see this kind of film. But it also feels like a refreshing break from how prison's portrayed in popular media, which in another way leads to people accepting that the idea of prison makes sense because we see like all of the violence that prison has inside of it. And we think, oh my God, there are monsters caged in here. Prisoner makes them monsters. But this film is so different, so I don't know if I can knock it necessarily for that. It was very valuable nonetheless. Even though maybe this movie could have done more, and like you're saying, that's also just because it's a rare opportunity to see a movie that really puts you alongside prisoners and humanizes them like this does.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you might want more from that. Maybe other movies can do it, but I really do think that this movie is absolutely at least a step in the right direction. It's in many ways, it's several steps ahead of other films that we are probably familiar with already. I'm like between an 8 and a 9 on this movie. As much praise as I have for the movie, my hang-up is very real to me, and I felt it throughout the film. I might be a 7 on it for that reason. Really? But it's not a 7 as in like, yeah, you could see it or not. Like, you should definitely see it. So this movie doesn't even have distribution yet. It like just premiered at TIFF. There weren't really expectations like here or there for it. I don't think it was even among the most anticipated movies in many ways. But honestly, after like kind of sitting with it, seeing the audience reaction, noting the quality of their performances, I feel like there is a world where the right distributor gets this movie and gives it an awards push that gets it into the Best Picture conversation. Maybe I also don't think that's impossible. If that were to happen, this could be a major SAG Ensemble contender. Yeah. Because there's rarely been an ensemble that I feel like I want to root for more than this movie. That's really, correct. Like, truly. It would be a threat to win SAG Ensemble. To win SAG Ensemble. We don't even know this movie could come out this year. Yeah. Maybe this is like how Sound of Metal premiered a year earlier and became a next year contender. Like, we'll just have to see, but all I can say is that Coleman Domingo, easily Best Actor worthy, and in every way the kind of performance that could be nominated for an Oscar. I even think that Clarence Macklin could come along as a supporting actor nominee. I would go as far to say if this was nominated in Best Picture, he would definitely come along. Yeah, I could see 2 acting nominations, picture, screenplay by default, editing maybe. It's hard to see like nominations beyond those for me, so I'm not like sold that it's a huge contender whenever it comes out. Maybe none of this happens. Maybe it gets picked up by a small distributor and you know, comes out quietly, but I think there's something there. I feel like there's something here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Are you and your prison buddies gonna make a play?